Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Nacho Problems, where we turn ordinary recipes into extraordinary nachos. I'm Nacho Queen, but you can call me M. A few weeks before I started my channel, I asked my Twitter friends what their favorite dishes were. I didn't tell them why, I just said it was for a project I was working on. The person who suggested today's video laughed when she heard the idea for the channel and said, well, I guess that won't work. Au contraire, mon ami, because today we're making Croquembouche Nachos. Yes, finally the wheel spins and lands on France. And if you don't get that joke, then you need to go look up the show Citation Needed by the Technical Difficulties. But do it after this video. I need the views more than they do. Anyway, Croquembouche, which means crunches in the mouth in French, and is ironically not called Croquembouche in France, is a tower of cream puffs held together and decorated with caramel. So let's get started. Step 1, the chips. We'll be making our chips of choux pastry, because you know what they say, if the shoe fits. For this we need 8 tablespoons of butter, a pinch of salt, 1 cup all-purpose flour, 4 eggs, and 1 cup of water. We'll start by adding the water, butter, and salt to a small saucepan. Bring that to a boil, then add in the flour all at once and stir well. Once it begins to pull away from the sides and turns into a nice ball of dough, we're going to remove it from the heat. You can do this next part by hand or with a hand mixer, but I'm going to break out Stevie Mix. I'm just going to transfer my dough over to the mixing bowl and then start mixing on a low speed while I add in the eggs one at a time, making sure each one is fully incorporated before adding the next. After the 4th egg, stop mixing as soon as the batter appears glossy. You don't want to overmix it. Now we need to transfer the dough over to a piping bag. I always place my piping bags in a cup like this so that they'll stand up and are easier to fill. I didn't put any tip on this as I'm just going to be piping some random shapes to see what we like best. But if you want to get fancy, then experiment with some different piping tips. Okay, I've lined a baking sheet with parchment paper. To hold it down, just add a little dab of dough at each corner. We're going to pipe out some different shapes. Let's start with a few squares. Then some triangles. Then maybe some ovals. And finally a couple of circles up top. These look good, but some of them have little points that I want to flatten out. To do that, dip your finger in a little bit of water and then gently pat the points down. Okay, we're going to pop these into the oven and bake them for about 30 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Watch them closely and remove once they're golden and sound hollow when tapped. Those look nice. I think I like the round ones best, so while I make some more of those, you can move on to Step 2, the cheese. For our cheese, we're going to be making vanilla pastry cream. For that we need 2/3 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons flour, 2 tablespoons cornstarch, 2 eggs, 2 cups heavy cream, 2 tablespoons butter, 2 teaspoons vanilla extract. Start by adding the eggs and cream to a small bowl and give them a good whisk. Set that aside. In a medium sauce pot, we're going to add in our sugar, flour, cornstarch. Next, add the eggs and cream to the sauce pot and stir well. Cook this over medium heat, stirring occasionally to remove lumps until it begins to boil. Then stir constantly until it thickens and coats the back of a spoon. Remove it from the heat and add in the butter and vanilla. Finally, strain that through a fine mesh sieve, and that's it. I can't believe it was that easy. Let's just put that aside to cool while we move on to Step 3, the toppings. So croquembouche is typically topped with caramel that's often spun into a pretty floss. So we're going to try that. For that we need 2 cups sugar and 1 cup water. We're going to combine the sugar and water in a medium saucepan and cook over medium-high heat, stirring until the sugar is mostly dissolved. Once it looks like the sugar is dissolved, do not stir it again. Just continue cooking. Warning, this part takes a bit of time. Now, a little spoiler. I have made caramel very successfully before by using another YouTuber's recipe. but I couldn't get permission to use it here, so I went with the recipe in my How to Cook Everything book. And to be honest, it didn't turn out very well. But I promised you guys in an earlier video that I wouldn't just show you my successes, I'd share the failures as well. So if you do decide to make this, there's a link in the description to the better recipe. Anyways, my recipe said to cook it until we hit 245 Fahrenheit. Mine hit 260, but still wasn't golden. And I didn't trust my instincts and keep going. I pulled it from the heat and moved on. Luckily, it wasn't a complete disaster. It still spun into threads, but they were really chewy. Still, once you've made your caramel, here's how to make it pretty. I've covered the counter with some parchment paper and taped it down. Now take 2 forks and some rubber bands. Place the forks back to back and wrap a rubber band around the tops like this, and another one around the bottom to hold them in place. Alright, before we start this next part, a small warning. Even though we've let it cool slightly, this stuff is still over 250 degrees. Water boils at 212 and skin burns at half that. This is very hot. Please be careful. Dip the forks in the sugar and start to drizzle it over your paper, drawing little swirls as you go. Be sure to sing your favorite Def Leppard song while you do this. That's very important. You're going to end up with this lovely little web design. Now just let that cool, and you're ready for step 4. Let's eat. We're going to start by dipping each chip in a little bit of our sugar for some flavor. Our syrup has cooled down even further, but I'm still being careful and using a fork. We're not going for an actual tower, but we'll pile some up into a little heap. Traditionally, we should have filled them with creamy goodness, but we've opted to drizzle our pastry cream over the top instead. Finally, add some of your spun sugar, and there it is. Not half bad. Now let's see who's up for Taste Tester this week. Youngson heard it was Dessert Nachos week and has abandoned Minecraft to offer himself as tribute. As expected, the spun sugar was chewy, but the rest was divine. Well, that's all for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, give it a like and please consider subscribing if you want to see more nacho videos. If you have an idea for a future video, you can leave a comment below or tag me on Twitter. I'm at NachoProblemsYT. And if you're looking for nacho merch, there's a link in the description. Now it's finals week, so I need to try and convince 2 different professors that I didn't sleep through all of their lectures, but luckily, that's not your problem. Thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.